Today on the Life Surfing Podcast, dealing with unsensible thoughts.
What is in your hand and what you need to understand is, are you entertaining these thoughts and feelings? Are you giving energy to them? Are you letting it gain more strength by your going with it, or also by fighting against it? Because that is the second part. When you fight against it, you are not becoming free. You are giving more energy to these patterns. We will consider some very subtle factors which are connected with inner work. One of the things which many people don't realize is that if you have negative thoughts, if you have some feelings which are coming up which are, according to the normal understanding, unsensible, unloving, destructive, what is mostly done is people try to fight against it, to push it away. And then they feel ashamed that they have such thoughts, they have such feelings. They try to cover it up so that nobody can see it. But what is not understood is that that is not a way to deal with it. For two reasons. One thing is, from where these thoughts and feelings are coming, you don't really know. You have many things which you have collected from the past, from different backgrounds, and different factors are working. So, it is not in your hands what thoughts and what feelings come. But what is in your hand and what you need to understand is, are you entertaining these thoughts and feelings? Are you giving energy to them? Are you letting it gain more strength by your going with it, or also by fighting against it? Because that is the second part. When you fight against it, you are not becoming free. You are giving more energy to these patterns because you think that they are really there. And in trying to push it down, to suppress it, to cover it up, you get more entangled in it. And then after a while you feel helpless, you think that you are not good enough, that you have to fight more. And it is a helpless, vicious circle which one gets into when one does not understand how nature is working in us. So this is one area where you need to really bring your attention to, that you are not fighting against the dark, negative, uncreative factors which you find in yourself as thoughts, as feelings, but look at it so that you become capable to understand the nature of your reality, and then you will also see that the deeper you go into considering it, the less chance all these patterns have to overtake your energy. Because the deeper you go means you stay with it long enough, you stay wakeful enough without taking sides. And then you start seeing many more factors which you were not seeing before, which was not coming into your visibility. So the inner work is very delicate, and there's so much possibility of getting trapped in misunderstandings and one-sided way of interpreting things, that things which are so simple can become so complicated and looking like it is impossible. That is why the inner work becomes a very adventurous journey, because there are so many subtle things like this which you need to understand in the right way, by understanding how nature is working in you, what is your part, what way you can go about it. This is why I say, first of all, accept all what is coming up in you. So without taking any sides, without going into blind following them or blind fighting against them, start looking and start considering it more carefully, more deeply, more wakefully. And that will open up new perspectives, new factors which reveal to you the interconnectedness of many different things which are working in you, which are in the nature, which are part of the way life is. And another thing which is also very delicate and very important is when you realize that when you are trying to put yourself in a box and say, I'm like this or I'm like that, you are again in a certain fighting attitude. Don't try to fix yourself in a box. See that all these things are working, but the moment you see, the moment your understanding deepens, your connection to them and your entanglement in them and in them changes. So rather than trying to fix yourself and saying that I am like this or I am like that, see what is all working. And through this you gain a new quality of being with the life, being with the reality, being with all that what is there in you, without being in a fixed way, without becoming stuck in an idea or an image or a concept about yourself. And this is very, very important, because when you look more carefully, you will see that everything is changing and moving. Your understanding is changing, and the more open you become, the more conscious you become, the more considerate you become, the more understanding that you need to look more carefully and deeply deepens in you. Then you see that it is a magical mystery tour. And that is where you will see that not identifying but observing becomes the clue. When you are not identifying yourself, when you are not trying to fix yourself, when you are not trying to claim I am this or I am that, but just being observant, just being wakeful, just being present. And that is what I mean with this orientation to life surfing. Because when you are not trying to fix yourself in a role, when you are not becoming caught up in an image or a concept or a belief about yourself, but looking and seeing that everything is changing, there are so many deeper factors involved in your reality. There are so many deeper factors which are at the moment not known to you, but it can become known. And there are so many deeper factors which are beyond our grasp, which our logical, rational mind cannot put it into some concept and say, okay, this is like this or this is like that. So, become alert about the nature of the reality, within and without. And these are the two factors which will be very, very valuable when you consider it more deeply and bring it into your living. The first thing, of course, the not fighting with the negative, instead trying to see what is taking place really in you. And the second thing, not identifying yourself and defining yourself and putting yourself in a box and trying to settle there. Be with this quality of lightness, looseness, non-settlement, so that you can go on answering to the newness of every moment. You can go on responding by being with the unknown in this moment. And this is what makes life so fascinating, because you see that the potential is immense, is ungraspable, it is so deep. And the more you consider and see, the more you realize that there is so much beauty, so much goodness, so much understanding and compassion arising in you, which you never may have imagined is possible. Because when people are fighting with themselves and got trapped in the polarity, then either one is imagining I am good, and then trying to suppress the so-called bad, or being caught in the image of I'm such a person and go on defending it. So both are misunderstandings. Your true goodness comes into manifestation when you are not, so to speak, fighting against the bad, but understanding what is the nature of the so-called bad, what is the nature of the dark and negative factors which are arising or coming up in you. So this is very important when you bring attention to both these factors in your day-to-day living. And those of you who are working on yourself for so long, this will be a very valuable help when these aspects get consciously incorporated.
Get ready for the day with life surfing on your way.
Again, it is starting with
preventing entanglements,
our limitation and the limitation of the other.
For fewer remorses later on.
It's not to point fingers at anybody, it's more to really see and understand how nature is working in us.
helping you to build and maintain an inner balance with the unique life surfing vision.
This will help you to become more clear, more free, and live in a balanced way, in an intelligent way.
Discover the hidden source of joy. A life surfing online seminar with Bhashkar, now exclusive on Udemy.
As long as you are not trying to define yourself and fix yourself in an idea, but being in a very non-struggling, light, gentle way, to be with what is and see the difference. Otherwise there is a so-called I trying to define and fix myself as I'm so and so, I'm this, I'm that. And this idea of a separate I, which we have become accustomed to, which is part of the conditioning, which is part of our requirement to be in the game of the world, sometime or other we need to realize that that is only an idea and not the reality. And this is why we are also uncomfortable, because everywhere we are looking for some kind of justification, some kind of agreement from outside which supports our idea of ourselves. Notice all this, notice all these expectations, notice all these tendencies, notice what is working in you in the subtlest form. And that is what is making it possible that you can become disentangled from the struggle. In the last seminar, I was giving everybody one orientation help to bring the attention to the expectations, the longings, the attitudes, the desires which are working in oneself. And especially when there are factors which are dragging you into any kind of worrying, into some kind of shadow state, look, what is these factors which are working? Is there any expectation? Is there any longing? Is there any attitude? Is there any wish which is going on in me? And bring attention to see it in its wholeness. And that will help you, because then you will see that it is not trying to define oneself and say that I am this or I am that. It is more being open to allow and experience that what you are, which is not a definition, which is not an idea of a separate I. Because as long as we are looking for a definition, as long as we are looking for a so-called I, we are avoiding the deeper step. And this is very important. So look in what way you are defining yourself, what idea of I or me or mine is working in you. Whether you are identifying with the body, identifying with the personality, identifying with the concept or image of who you are, which you have developed or accumulated in the course of life. Bring all this and don't hold to anything. Only when you can consciously not hold to anything, then you are open to experience that what you truly am, which is not a definition. That is why you must have heard this so many times. I was referring to Ramana Maharshi and his approach. He said, ask the question, who am I? But all the answers which the mind is providing you, know that that is not it. So, ask the question so that the mind can be exhausted of all its so-called answers. Because what you are is not an explanation. It is not words and concepts which you need to experience who you are. But you need to go beyond it. And that is possible when you ask the question and allow all the explanations and the answers which the mind has to provide. Let it come up. Look at it, let it go. Look at it, let it go. Look at it, let it go. And a moment comes where there is a question, but the mind has no more answers, no more explanations. And he says, at this point, be with this quest, with this intensity, this wakefulness, without holding to anything. That is when we become available for the experiential recognition, awareness of what we are, who we are. But it is not an idea of the I which we can hold to. It is not a definition which we are expecting. That is why all this we have to confront. So, accept yourself with all what you find in yourself, including the shyness, including the expectations, including some kind of longing, but let it all become more deeply transparent to you, what it all means, what are its implications for you. And when you are understanding the need not to identify with anything, not to cling to anything, then a moment comes where there is a non-interfering availability. And that is very, very important. That is what J. Krishnamurti calls passive awareness. A non-interfering quality, but filled with alertness. Passive awareness. Or you have heard many other expressions like mirror-like consciousness and all that. The important thing is to let it come into our practice, that we bring it into living. So with this orientation, continue to go deeper.
Okay, thank you.
The Life Surfing podcast will be back next week. In the meantime, make sure that you're following us right here on Spotify.